90% of coaches and online businesses fail. So, what do you do to escape the coach trap? What do you do to not fall into the coach trap? You can start today. You can subscribe to our channel to find out more. Now, the real aim of the podcast, why we created the podcast, was to bring someone in who's done it, to someone in who's escaped the trap, so they can share the story with you so you don't have to. So this week we are very fortunate to have Jonathan Maltby. Jonathan, I'd love to know a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your story of how you got into this crazy business, and then let's break it down.
Cheers, Greg. Great to be here today. So I've been coaching now for the best part of 12 years. Started off doing career coaching and then moved into more business coaching, similar to yourself. My background was actually in teaching. And I left high school teaching. I was a teacher for a number of years. I then went on a big career kind of adventure, tried a whole bunch of things. And for some unknown reason, I ended up in recruitment. And I worked in technical recruitment for a number of years. And, one day I was just kind of sitting thinking to myself, I've got all these amazing candidates, but they really suck at selling themselves. So whether it be in their CV, LinkedIn, and in interviews. And I thought, you know what? I've got all of this knowledge in my head of what a great standout candidate needs to look like, but it's no good sitting in my head. I've got to get that stuff out of there. So I started coaching some people on the side and basically how to help them brand themselves, how to understand their value, their worth, how to understand how to articulate their skills. So it kind of grew from there, and I think I was working a day job, and then I was coaching on the side until it got to the point where I could say goodbye to the day job. And I remember quitting in spectacular fashion. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where you just want to stick it to the man and you play it out in your head exactly how you want it to be, and then when it comes down to it, you chicken out and you never say what you want to say in your head. I didn't do that. I said it and I stuck it to them, and that was 10 years ago. So I was coaching on the side for 2 years and now coaching full time 10 years now. So I love it. Absolutely love it. I think after 12 years I'm unemployable. I could never go back and work for somebody again.
I absolutely love that. What an amazing story, right? And there's so many ways that we can go with this chat. But look, I want to know someone who's got all this experience. I want to know someone who's been doing this for 10 years, 12 years experience, right? So let's start off with something that I think will help all of the other coaches out there, everyone who's in our community, everyone who's listening. Let's talk about niching down, right? So ICF released this study, and they said that specialists earn 30% more than generalists, right? So let's say if you have a specific niche for working with alcohol or for people that want to give up smoking, right? Ideally, generally, you'll earn 30% more than a general life coach or a business coach. So look, I'd love to know a little bit more about this. So you've obviously gone through a few changes, right? You've obviously gone through your own niche changes. Tell me a little bit more. What's your thoughts on that?
I am very much in the camp of being a specialist. I have a saying that says when you try to be everything to everybody, you end up being nothing to no one. And you end up being that kind of jack of all trades, which means it's really difficult to kind of position yourself. You go, am I this and am I this? I'm just trying to be everything to everybody. And then they sit there twiddling their thumbs going, we're the clients. I'm using a scattergun, but when you are niched and when you're focused, it means that you have client in mind, you understand what problems they have, and then you become an expert at solving a range of problems, but not every problem for a client. So my kind of journey, I've changed over the years as I've evolved. I haven't stagnated. So, my specialization really has been honed down on helping people find clarity. And that's really kind of helping them unpick all the noise that's in their head, cut through that clutter and get that absolute clarity on kind of three core areas. And one is clarity of self, like what the heck am I? And there's clarity of
Yeah.
purpose, which is what the heck am I doing here? And clarity of direction is where the heck am I going? So those are my kind of three areas that I sort of focus on with people. And it's just kind of getting rid of all the noise. So I'm a big one in helping people kind of figure out and figuring out what is your niche, what's your area of specialization? Because it makes it so much easier to have a focused day, a focused brand message, focused marketing activities as well.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with you, right? And it's one of the real sort of like cliche beliefs of the coach trap. So the guru will tell you, right, to go out there and create content to appeal to everyone, to have the flashiest funnels, to have the most AI generated shit. And the problem is, like you said, right, vanity metrics aren't quite what you need. You try and talk to everyone, you appeal to no one. So what you have to try and do is actually try and talk to your smallest viable option to talk to someone. And
Mm,
the best way to do that, I find, is through stories, right? So this is the mistake that I made when I started, is I thought that the CV that I had would be enough for me to be a successful coach. And actually it meant shit. It meant nothing, right? So the real sweet spot that me and Dan Williams worked out was not to talk about me, right? But to talk about the problems that I'd lived through, lived experience. So to turn myself from the hero into the guide. Right. So, and
mm.
that was what niching down went. So actually, believe it or not, most of my life coaching stuff is relationship based. I never knew I was going to do that. I've got no special qualifications in it, but I've got lived experience. And that's
Yes.
interesting stuff, right? And that's the niching down element. Okay, let's move on. 12 years experience. Can't wait to
Yeah.
pull you apart on this, right?
All right,
So we
mate.
did a
Go for it.
webinar the other day in our community, and it was all about pricing. So with the coach track, we have this thing, like the rule of 100. So if it's under £100, show it. Book, whatever it is, right? Something small, right? You're going to show it. Over £100, hide it. Okay. Also known as the Vebalion effect, right? The idea that if you go into Lamborghini,
Mm,
it says inquire within. If you go to Volkswagen, it shows the prices. So I'll give you a little bit of information, right? Average, no, the median ICF coaching rate is $244 per hour. So what does that make you think? Would you raise your prices to look a bit more premium? Because we don't give discounts. We're
no,
against Black Friday sales, right? So
absolutely.
I'm under the impression, actually, from my experience that I have, is if someone wants it, they're going to buy it. So remember we talked about, we were talking off first show, weren't we? The average podcast listener's annual income is 5K, right? So actually that's the sort of audience that you want.
Mm,
And they're not necessarily going to look at money. They want the transformation. Transformation is priceless. So
yeah.
I'd just love to know a little bit more from your, from your experience. What's your view on pricing?
Yeah. And this is something I coach in when I coach other coaches on how to kind of set their businesses up. When you first start out in coaching, I don't believe that. Don't become fixated on pricing. Get fixated on methodology first. Understand who you're selling to. Get all the fundamentals right, and then start figuring out your pricing. But have a nominal price. I remember when I first started coaching, my price is very different to what it looks like now. And every few years, I put my pricing up because you got to. You got to. My prices just went up $500 each for each of my packages at the end of the last year. And I'm a big one for experimenting. I'm probably the least person that is outcomes focused. I'm more action focused and believe that the outcome will take care of itself. I love experimenting. I love tweaking things. I love to see, I wonder what would happen if I did this. Pricing, I find, is not actually what your market will pay. It's what you believe you're worth. Also create your own ceilings. I know people when I'm coaching them, I said, no, you should put your price here. And they go, no one's going to pay that. And I'm like, yeah, they will, but you believe they won't, so they won't. But let's try a little experiment. Let's put it at that price. Oh, but it's going to push a whole lot of people away. Yeah, it might, but let's try it out. And then lo and behold, they start getting clients and they're going, my God, why have I been charging so low for my fees? So I always say that when you start with pricing, it's never where you're gonna end up, but you'll find the sweet spot over time. But you're not just people. One of the things you've got to realize with coaching is that people aren't paying for your time; they're paying for your expertise more than anything else. They're paying for a result, and sometimes it's hard to put a price on a result, but you have to have a good idea of what it is. I don't discount, never do. I don't run specials or sales or anything else like that. To me, that diminishes the value of the coaching. So I think we were talking about this off screen. I don't reveal my prices. I only reveal them when I do a one-on-one call with people. Unless, of course, it's under 100. So I've got a coaching program that starts at $39. It's my community. Come and join it whenever you like, you know? And that's just where it starts. But then coaching packages can go to $3, $4, $5,000
Yeah. Yeah.
and above, depending on how long people work.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, you're so aligned on this, right? So, and I want to learn. I want to know more about this, right? Pricing is an interesting one. So, there's a few giveaways. I remember telling someone openly one of the biggest mistakes when I was assessing a LinkedIn profile. I said the biggest initial mistake that you've made is the green circle around your account that says open to work.
Yes.
That's the first thing that has to go, right? And it's the
Yeah.
idea, isn't it, of coaching being seen as a premium, the scarcity effect as well, right? So actually, we don't work with everyone, right? We don't want everyone. We want a very small amount of people, and we want them to feel, because it actually is, that actually working
Yeah.
with us is Approves. And I think that's what most coaches get wrong. So if they advertise discounts, if they advertise, Black Friday sales type stuff, I think subconsciously you feel like less perceived value, if that makes sense, right? So
You're playing in a
interesting
lower
stuff.
status, I believe. If you're discounting
Yeah,
like that, mentality is going to a low status value.
absolutely. Absolutely. But obviously, we've got a book coming out, we've got a community, just like you. There has to be that mere exposure effect, right? With something that grabs them like that, and they're like, okay, hang on. Because also, what that does with the low ticket stuff, and the rule of 100, to get them through the door, let's say a newsletter, community, book, podcast, whatever it is, right? All low ticket or whatever, it fills the 7 hours, the 6 to 8 clicks. Because before someone wants to buy a high ticket, I think no one, all this time that I've been doing this, I'd love to know whether it's happened to you. No one's just clicked on a website and bought a high ticket package.
Never.
No one. They
No.
want to know you, right? And most of them I feel get to know you from the low ticket, the 6 to 8 clicks, the 7 hours going across, and then they make that decision to where they buy. Which brings me on to another point. I think one of the biggest issues with coaches is they don't like feeling salesy, right?
Yeah.
So many ways that we can go with this. So I don't consider myself a businessman, right? So I've all these chats. I say, no, 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 I'm not a businessman. I'm not a marketer. I'm a coach. I don't like to be known as that, and I'm not an expert in that. I'm a coach who's interested in the thing.
Hmm.
And also, coaches type A and type B. So it's a shame that Dan can't be here. So I'm very much Coach Carter. Dan
Hmm.
Williams is very much Wolf of Wall Street, right? Me and you've also
Okay.
got a friend, a mutual friend, haven't we? Jack
Yes.
A.M. Austin, right? He's very much Wolf of Wall Street. Different personality type to me. Amazing guy. Those guys love to sell, love to, to be in sales
Yeah.
calls, love to that sort of stuff. I find it a bit cringeworthy. I love helping people, right? And I'm all about transformation, but I find that bit really, really hard. And I know other coaches do as well. So how do you fill that gap to not being salesy, right? All that experience. Obviously, I've got to know you really, really well. And also I've got to
Mm.
know your content really, really well.
Mm. Mm.
If I was going to guess, your number one sales pitch is your energy, right? No need for flashy funnels because the energy's there for everyone to see. But that's just an opinion that I've got, right? From the way that I've got to know you. So, but talk me through it. If you were going to, obviously, the people that you coach and your own experience, how do you get past that salesy part?
Okay, that's a great question, and it's one that I've spent a lot of time. I have worked in sales many years, and for a long time, I never felt comfortable with selling coaching practices and that sort of stuff. Because you know what? I think people feel like they don't want to come across as that kind of used car salesman in a parking lot, going, "Boy, have I got a deal for you." That's the way they want to get away from, and that's why sales feels awkward. And they said it doesn't feel authentic, and I said, you know what? Forget all of that kind of stuff. All sales is forming connections with people where they have a need, they have a gap, they've got a pain. And if your product or your coaching helps them transform that pain into something better, and if you're in alignment, then a sale naturally happens. I don't do hard sales. I don't sell to everyone. I do a lot of conversations, but I don't work with everybody that comes across in a call with me. I feel it. There's got to be some sort of chemistry. That's a big thing for me, is just listening to the chemistry. Can we work together? Yes, I can probably help you, but I want to enjoy the coaching as well with somebody. And I've got to feel a certain amount of alignment. Now, I do coach other coaches on how to have what I call structured conversations, where you're actually leading the client or the prospect through a series of milestones, to get an agreement. And basically, you're just figuring each other out to saying, can we work together? And the
Yeah.
sale just kind of naturally happens. When I've tried to force sales, it doesn't work.
Mm,
Sometimes I've just had a conversation, people go, when can we start? And I've done no sales, but you're right. A lot of people do buy the energy. They love the energy. And I'm just kind of showing up. We've met in person. How you see me now is how I am with kind of everybody. Always have been that way. When I used to be a high school teacher in the classroom, this is how I was. I don't have to pretend to be anything I want just to get a client over the line. I love doing the conversations. And you're right when you're saying, when people look for a coach, they don't look to click a buy now button on a website. That does nothing. When I work with my clients who I'm coaching to become coaches, we say everything starts with a conversation. If you're not having simple, basic conversations with your prospects, you're not actually going to get any momentum. in your business. No amount of posting or webinars or podcasts is going to change anything unless you can get people to experience you one on one and almost get a little bit of a taste for what it would be like to work with you. And when I do my one on one calls with people, when I'm vetting them or they're vetting me, I try to give as much value as I possibly can. Even if they don't go with me, they're still going to walk away from the call better than when they walked in. And if
Absolutely.
I can offer as much value as I can on those calls, that is my aim
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. And value because you care, right? So
Oh,
remember, we
absolutely.
are,
It's
yeah,
fundamental.
anti-guru, right? Me and you are friends and we're on this call because I respect you as a man and a coach, right? I love the energy and I love the thing that you've got, right? So I've got a good story about this, about being
Yeah.
salesy. So I knew that me and Dan Williams had a good thing. I knew it 2.5, 3 years ago. I knew that one, he was very good, and two, I knew that we had chemistry, right? And I knew that we could help lots of people. When we had people come in and people were asking me about how I did it. It was that light bulb moment. I was like, actually, hang on. It's a good relationship me and Dan have got. We can help people. But that isn't enough to create a company, right? That's a hobby. So there comes a
Mm,
moment when you got to stop being a hobbyist and start creating a company. And I had to really dig deep behind the coach trap, really dig deep to creating not just me and Dan, but creating a brand,
yeah.
right? So I learned something. Joe Gerard, world record car salesman. Be the most one of, you think of car salesmen, think of the most sleaziest people on the planet,
Yeah.
and he had this crazy amount of number of cars sold, right? World record, Guinness World Record car sales. And it was like, what's the secret? How are you so different to everyone else? And he was like, I don't just want people to think I want them to buy the car. I want them to believe, I need them to believe that they're going to have a better life from picking this
Mm,
car. Right?
mm,
So that was it. So the coach trap had to find an enemy, which was the guru, right? And
yeah.
culture. We are anti-establishment, right?
Absolutely.
And, we had to we changed the positioning from me and Dan as the hero to me and Dan as the guide, right? And the client is the hero. So how did we counteract being salesy as we sold a story? And the story isn't to appeal to everyone, it's to appeal to the smallest viable option. So
That's
when they
right.
come into the sales calls, they turn up, these people that we have been burnt by gurus. They
Yeah.
are already worried about the establishment. They also
Mhm.
notice that it's a bit of a murky business, right? And we hope, right, with the story that we have and the honesty that we have, and like you said, the amount of value that we give, that we generally, hand on heart, want to help people, right? So
Yeah.
I've already made my money. I made that clear. So I'm not in this as a businessman. I'm in this to generally change as many people's lives as I can, like you with the Valiant part. And I think lots of people get that wrong. And that's why I think the gurus are out. I think that they are finished. Right? I even saw something about Alex Hormozzi's latest drops and stuff
Yeah.
being far down, right? And I think he's a great guy. But you can see that people are being more skeptical of those sort of types, right? Because AI's changed a lot of that because they can do a
Oh,
lot for
yeah.
themselves. So how actually we went against being salesy, because I hate being salesy, was to be honest. Be brutally honest. And some people some people love it, some people hate it. Oh, I reckon I tell 3 or 4 people to fuck off a week.
Yep.
I have 2 or 3 arguments a
You've
week, a
shown me,
month,
you've told me it. It's
yeah, so
legendary.
yeah, but that's great because if I appeal if we change 20 coaches' lives a month or whatever it might be, then I'm all happy because they will also change the lives of many more people, especially in a world which is struggling. So I'm happy to be the flag bearer for that argument. All right.
You see, that's why I think we get on so well because I've always been a person who's been against the establishment.
Mm,
I've always been someone who's just had a more of a kind of a fuck you sort of attitude to these kind of things and going, find your own path. Stop listening to gurus who've been
yeah.
doing something for 6 months on LinkedIn and now can find you 100 leads in a week. And this is how you coach. I love to help people find their own style and find their, what I call their own authentic voice and then bring that out and lead from there. A lot of sometimes people would say, Jonathan, you don't have any coaching qualifications, you haven't done a formalized coaching course, come and
Mm,
join our coaching course, we'll get you certified. I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do. People come
absolutely.
to me after they've gone to your courses. People come to me when they haven't got those kind of
Mm,
break, because those courses, they tend to put you in a nice little box, you get a nice little badge that you can put on your LinkedIn profile. And what you do is you become slightly institutionalized and you have a cookie cutter framework because you've studied this. Whereas I've got my own framework. It's worked perfectly for the last 12 years. It's had massive results, but I'm not conditioned. And people come to me when they've gone through other coaches that have been conditioned. And I've had people say to me, Jonathan, I've got more out of you in the last hour than the last 3 years with my last coach. You've just
Yeah.
turned everything that I've seen on its head. And I've walked out of this call with complete clarity that I never had beforehand. I'm like, that's what happens when you work with a coach who hasn't been conditioned.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I do live coaching every day, every single morning. And I remember telling you and telling Jack, do you think I do any of them on Zoom? No. I do most of them on phone call. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
fucking outrageous, right? In ICF or wherever it might be, would go, oh my God, I can't believe the guy's doing that. But look, this is actually I made it that reason, not because it's less professional, because I think people want that. When you look at people who are short on time,
Yeah.
they want to speak to you in the car. They want to speak to you when they're
Yeah.
moving around on the train or whatever it might be, right? I
I've
actually had
done
one
many of
today, and
those.
he was on the train. It's
I've
funny
done those.
stuff, right? Yeah, it's
You,
just
you know
great.
which spot they're going past if you know the train line.
It's great. Right. So I reckon we've got time for two more questions, right?
Far
I've got
away.
some good ones. So the last one's a cracker. But the one I think one thing we got aligned right is the podcast and the chat. So when Dan really took my message and turned it into a business, we created the Masculinity Unmasked podcast. It was great. Blew up my life coaching stuff, which is amazing. For help coaches now, it's all about the coach track, right?
Mm.
But for you, I know you do something also very valuable. I learned a stat the other week. The average annual income for people that watch podcasts is 75,000. So does that mean that they're already sort of pre-qualified leads, the sort of people that you want to appeal to by creating a podcast? So I know we had this thing about, not trying to appeal to everyone, trying to appeal to the smallest viable option, but also appealing to the ones who are fit for your company, right? Who are fit for you. So I'd love to know a little bit more about about the show that you do, and obviously I can't wait to be a guest on it myself.
Yeah.
Tell me,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit
Yeah.
more about it.
I've recorded a bunch of episodes. I'm just going to get a couple more together before I start staggering out. My podcast is called Two Coaches with Coffee. And I've basically
Mm,
been talking similar coaches to yourself, usually past the 5 year mark of coaching. Because here's what happens. When people coach, or when they get into coaching, some of them quit their day job, they're going to go into coaching, or sometimes they're doing a bit on the side, and they think to themselves, right, I love what I do. I want to help people. I want to coach. And so day one, they're sitting in front of their computers or in a cafe or wherever they're going, and they're going, I am ready to coach. Oh, shit. Where are all the clients? Shit. How do I even get clients? Oh, how do I even create content? And being a coach and running a coaching practice is two separate skill sets. You could be the world's best coach, but the world's shittest business person. All
yeah,
right. And this
yeah,
one here, Two Coaches with Coffee, is what I've noticed when you first start coaching, when you first start in your coaching practice, 20% of your time is in delivery. 80% of your time is everything you need to do to be able to do that 20% delivery. That's your sales, your marketing, your figuring out what your package is and how you're going to show up, figuring out your pricing, all the business side. And this is where a lot of people, you see them. We talked about that little green thing on their LinkedIn saying open to work. I think that's tragic. When a coach has an open to work on their LinkedIn profile, it means something has gone wrong somewhere in the line. They've spent too much time in the 80% and less time in the 20% making the money. So this podcast is really getting coaches on who've done that, who have worked hard and figured out how do we reduce that 80% and we make that 20%, 30, 40, 50, 50.
yeah,
And that's bigger. That's all your systems, your processes, a lot of mindset stuff in there as well, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns when you start coaching. You're a business person if you're just doing it by yourself and you haven't got somebody to do your marketing on the side. That sort of stuff comes later. So it's
yeah.
really helping people build the fundamentals of business, of running a coaching practice, not so much in the coaching side. That's what the podcast is about.
Okay, last question, big one, right? Me and you have spoke to this a lot about off air, right? We even did a LinkedIn live with Jack, right? Talking about AI in coaching.
Yeah.
It's obviously the biggest thing in coaching, but me and you are coaches. Most people I speak to are terrified that AI is going to take over their coaching business. So I had a coach a few weeks ago, different to what Jack presented. The guy I actually we worked with him, and he sent me an app and he goes, what do you think? I've created an AI app for my business, an AI psychology therapy app.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I don't need to look at this. Do you want to destroy your personal brand? He goes, what do you mean? And I told him about the therapeutic alliance, right? That actually, like human on human is an alliance, is a bond, right? Something that you don't break. It's an age old, I remember even looking at the real origins of life coaching. I don't become professional in 1970, but there was so much more before that, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Stanford did a study recently, and it said that the first jobs that are going to go with AI are information delivery.
Yep.
Now, how many people have you had dip into your DMs on LinkedIn and say that they'll build an AI to coach your clients?
I get dozens of messages a month or a week with people who are trying to sell me some sort of AI functionality to enhance my business. And I look in their LinkedIn profiles and I see how long they've been doing that. It's probably 3, 4 weeks, but they're a guru.
Absolutely.
They're a guru at that.
Absolutely.
And I run a mile. I just like, no, thank you. AI, look, AI is a fantastic tool. I love AI, but people don't want to be coached by an AI. There's something so primal about people and people connection. You can't
Yeah.
connect with an AI. It has the illusion of connection, but people connect with people. We want that human to human experience.
Yeah.
And
I
AI
agree.
is nowhere near that yet.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember like talking to you and Jack, right? There's some real scary stats with this.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember you brought up the one about AI always accepting what you say. I can't remember the name for it. It's got a good term that, hasn't it? But I
It's
can't
like a
remember the.
sycophant. Yeah. It's that.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's just got like a 76% agreement rate. But the scariest thing about AI is it builds. It's been known to build romantic attachments.
Yeah. I've heard that.
So I was telling you about the open AI cases, right? These people that have unfortunately taken their lives, they all built romantic attachments with them. It's just absolutely mind blowing to think, right? I think AI is here to stay. Let's be honest, it's not going to. And I use Claude just like you, like everyone else. And actually, I love telling these people, like you have. I have Claude. I pay for Claude. I
Hey.
just ask it to do what I want. So it's like whatever you tell me you can do, I can just get Claude to do for me anyway, and I'll decide whether I'm going to use it or not. So it's almost like we said about what jobs are going to go with AI, you writers,
Yeah.
right? To ask ChatGPT to make your YouTube thumbnail. It's incredible. Incredible stuff, right? It's like that sort of stuff is going to get replaced, right? But what me and you are doing now and what me and you are doing actually like making change, right? Change makers. That isn't going, it's age old, right? I just think that AI can help to improve it, like you were talking about auto AI and transcripts and stuff like that to improve it, right? That stuff's definite. But when someone says, "Oh, I've created an app to coach clients," I'm just thinking, you go fuck yourself. Seriously. I mean, like, it's so dangerous. And whenever I see that, all I ever think is you're only interested in making money for yourself,
That's
not
right.
looking to transform people's lives, right? Which brings me back to something else, the dot-com boom. So me and
Yeah.
you are of a certain age, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember saying this to a few times. I grew up in a life pre-internet, like you, right? And then I remember internet coming in. I remember phones coming in. I remember how the clarity of life
Mm.
without the internet and phones, right? Imagine Thomas Edison. The greatest way I can describe this to people is if you look up in the sky. So I was in Sargao in the Philippines. You look up in the sky, you can see stars, millions of stars. In Da Nang, you can't. In Bangkok, you
No.
can't. In London, you can't see nothing. It's just black. So then the light bulb come in, changed all that. So now there's no stars. So clarity's went, right?
Yes.
And that's what the internet did. And this is what AI has done, is that clarity is gone. But what happened with the dot-com boom is most of them failed. Pretty much all of them failed. The
Yeah.
only ones that stayed are the ones that created purpose, right? The ones who actually wanted to change people's lives. And this is what I say to the people with AI. AI is only ever going to be a dot-com boom. Lots of people will make money early and quick, but unless it transforms people's lives, unless it's there to make things better, it's finished. It's finished.
There's a lot of noise out there. There's so many AI tools coming out all the time. I don't think it's made things easier for people. I think it's just added more confusion and clutter. Which tool do I use? How do I use it? Do I use this tool for this? And you're getting all these multitude of different ways to use the same tool. It's just making more and more noise, which is why if you're a coach by yourself, just talking to people and you're not using that sort of stuff, I think it's a great way to stand out because at the end of the day, as I said, people want to connect with a human. AI is a
Yeah.
fantastic tool. It's an enabler, but it's not a replacement, I don't believe.
Normally, this is the part of the show where I ask you to ask a question for Dan, right? But my expert knowledge isn't quite as good as his, right? So I don't think we're going to do that today. I have something better to talk about.
Okay.
Before we come on and we talk as well, it's not the first time I've heard you speak about this. I heard you talk about it over dinner, right? You've done this for a lot longer than me, right? Nearly double, more than double the time than I've done it. And you said the amount of time you've done this and the amount of the transformation that you've seen and the transformation that you'll see again, there's not one silver bullet,
Yeah.
which is the magic to success. So lots of gurus will say, right, create this funnel, make ad spends, change the copy on your website, make short form video, whatever, right? Gold ticket. It's bullshit. It's
Yeah.
bullshit, right? I know what the only thing that I know works out of anything that I've seen. There's only one thing that I know which works. I want to know whether we think that they're the same. All right. So, is there one underlying thing which has kept you in the game? So, remember that the thing of this podcast is to inspire others, right? So, let's say that all these new coaches, and I've got another ploy, not a ploy, something else behind this. AI is going to replace so many jobs. You said about the information delivery jobs. I reckon one of the first places that people are going to come is coaching. I know it. One of the first places they're going to look to replace their jobs after they've been replaced by AI is coaching. More people will fail than ever before. AI, you think with AI it's easier. With AI, it's harder to stand out. I'm so glad that me and you, me in particular, got into this business at the time that I did, because I think if I went into it now, I'd fail completely. It's too hard. It's too hard. That brings me back to that silver bullet idea, right? So talk to me a little bit more about that. If there was one take home, one golden message that someone who's going to go into this coaching space, or someone who's thinking about leaving coaching, someone who's done this for 12 years, right? Someone who's got the reputation that you've got, what would you tell them?
There are so many different tactical things that you can do to keep yourself alive in a coaching business. So many. And everybody's going to tell you something different. Everyone's going to try and sell you a package to do a tactical thing to make your business grow. There are going to be ups and there are going to be downs. There are going to be amazing highs when you get a client or a whole bunch of new clients, or you release a program and it works. And there are also going to be some devastating lows. Business. It's not all sunshines and rainbows. The thing that you're up against the most, I find, that is going to help you stay the course is not a tactical thing. It's the stuff that happens inside the head. It's you versus you every single day. And if you haven't got enough of the mental resilience, not everybody is cut out for being, there's a lot of people who are cut up for being a coach, but not everyone's cut out for running a coaching practice. There's a big difference. You are going to have days where it's going to be quiet, or weeks or months where it's going to be quiet. It's having that internal resilience and that internal belief to help you keep going. You can read as many tactical books as you can to help you, but I don't think if you're not nourishing your own mind, your own soul, counteracting that negative self-talk, all those doubts that come up in your head, that is where people fail. They don't fail on tactics, I think. They fail on allowing a voice inside their head that says, give up.
I love that.
Probably the biggest thing that people are going to come up against. And if you can nourish that and counteract that, you'll be fine.
Yeah. If I could bottle that.
Yeah.
And this goes into the power of podcasting, creating reels. That's amazing. I have a similar sort of approach to it. Everything that I do, I run it past the holiday test. Right. So let's say that AI, right? Me and you were introduced to something the week about copying AI. The problem with AI copy is you sound like Tony Robbins or Alex Hormozi, whatever it is. You don't sound like Greg Stein or Jonathan, right? You need to sound, I love the Aussie terms that you've got, and you use it in your content as well, which I love that. You only want to appeal to other Jonathans, if that makes sense, right? But the holiday test is everything that I do is this, is that if you ever been in a foreign land, right? So I was in Hoi An, right? This is when I coined this, and I was having breakfast down in the lobby, and I heard someone who had exactly the same accent as me.
Yeah.
Exactly the same cadence, right? I wanted to know who they were, why they were there, and what they were doing. I think that the holiday test is the key to any marketing thing you do, anything you post, any video, anything that you do, because I don't need to appeal to 100,000 of people. I need to appeal to 100 other Greg Stein style coaches, right? Who want to make change in the world and all this sort of stuff. I don't need to go viral or appeal to LinkedIn gurus or whatever it might be. And I feel like for me and you, we're very much aligned on that. It's very much like, and I think that's why we're here having this chat actually, because we've got the same sort of beliefs,
I had a very similar story at the beginning of the year. I was on a swimming pool on a rooftop in Kuala Lumpur, having a swim, talking to another guy, and a guy swam past me, and we just started, because he overheard our conversation, and he picked up a phrase that I used, which probably wasn't, it was, and he came and he swam up and he just started talking to us because there was something in what I said resonated with him, and we were on holiday. And he was also, funnily enough, from the UK, in a freaking swimming pool, up to our necks in water, overlooking a beautiful, the KL on the rooftop. And that was it. That was the holiday test. Right then and there. You just made me think of it.
Yeah. It's just an interesting thing. So everything that I do, every post I write, every video I put out, I make sure it passes the holiday test. So I suffer with imposter syndrome a lot, right? So it's not like I need to be me, not anyone else, not Alex Hormozi or Tony Robbins. I need to be Greg. So, Jonathan, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the episode. Just before we finish, I'd love to know, where is the best place to find you?
Best place to find me, best places. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Is where I do a lot of my stuff. So I don't know if you might put the that in, but just notice the spelling of my name. It's JOHNATHAN. I love new connections. I love having chats with people. You can also go to my website, www.johnmaltby.com.au, and you can book a free call with me as well. I love having calls with people. It's probably my most favorite thing is just connecting and chatting to people.
I love that. I love that. Absolutely amazing. Guys, for everyone that's listening, remember, whatever you do, don't fall into the coach trap.